Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ethosh Podcast, where we delve deeper into the ever evolving world of life sciences and healthcare technologies. Here we have conversations with people who are working at the intersections of technology and healthcare. Today we have one such personality with us, Dr. Pushkar Khair. Dr. Pushkar has an experience of 14 years of working not just in the healthcare industry, but also as a storyteller, as an explorer of AI, working in design thinking and neurolinguistic programming. So, what are we waiting for? Let's delve into the episode. Hello, hi. So, today, what we're going to be talking about here is storytelling. It's an extremely interesting topic because stories are all around us. Stories are wherever we go, we see stories. We've grown up with stories. There are some stories that have stayed with us throughout our childhood. We still maybe follow the lessons we learned from them. Some we maybe just remember because we like them. But they are something that we are going to decode here on this episode today with Dr. Pushkar. So, Doctor, my first question to you is that we know that stories stay with us, but still, what is storytelling and why does it work? Why do they stay with us?
Yes, Purva. I think when it comes to stories, most of the people have the impression that stories is about once upon a time. But for me, it's not only about once upon a time. It could be a picture which is on a billboard. A static picture can tell a big story. It can be a 30-second reel, very well made. It can tell a big story, really in 30 seconds. It can be a whole full-length feature, which really is telling a long story there. So stories is not about the length of communication. Stories is about the way in which a communication reaches somebody's deep mind or unconscious mind. Some people call it subconscious mind. So stories, I feel, is a way of reaching the unconscious or the subconscious of your audience in order to create some kind of influence, some kind of effect or impact that you really intend to have. And I think stories are a great vehicle to achieve that.
So, what is it about stories that makes them stick with the person that they are told to? Because sometimes, information and stories. So, what's the difference and why are they better?
The beauty about stories is that each one has got a very different way of interpreting the same story. Now, you go with your friends to watch a movie. The movie that everybody watches is just the same, but the meaning that all of you come out with is totally different. So the same story creates a different influence on everyone based on the filters through which they listen to or watch a story. By the way, I watched the movie in which you worked, and it was an awesome movie about ballet. And I'm sure many people would have taken different forms of inspirations from it. It's about following your goal. It's about really being determined about achieving something. But the beauty of the story is that it has got a metaphoric influence on everyone. So a metaphor could have a very different interpretation in everybody's mind. That's why each one listens to a story differently, hears the story differently, and grasps and absorbs it differently. That's the difference about when it comes to communications through stories.
So, this, the grasping of stories, which is different in everybody, that depends on?
It's upon many things. One is, of course, the state of the mind in which you are listening to the information. It's about the filters through which you are really observing a particular story. Now, when I was doing my learnings in neurolinguistic programming, that is the art of communication or creating an impact through communication, it was taught that people have got different channels of perceptions. People are really visual. Some people are auditory. They get associated with sounds very naturally. Some people get associated with emotions better than visuals or sounds. And some people are very objective and digital in really analyzing information. So we need to understand that the audiences could be really different. Some of them could be predominantly visual. Some of them could be predominantly, sound graspers. So when we design a story, we really need to see that all these filters are addressed. And these are the filters through which, and these are just the perception channels which I mentioned about the senses that you have. But each of us has got our own value system. Each of us has got our own beliefs, and these filters creates a lot of influence upon the way we understand or perceive stories. So these are the filters in which people really see stories, hear stories, feel stories differently.
So when we talk about people feeling stories differently according to their own value perceptions, so how do marketers who I think who want to tell a story about their brand, who are trying to build the best story around their brand, who are trying to tell who they are, the brand, so how do they decide whether their story, what they are crafting, is going to affect their audience positively, or maybe it'll just bounce?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the best marketing activities happen when you really put the thought of storytelling in your communication. And a marketer could have very different objectives for the communication. It could be just creation of awareness, or it could be, okay, there is awareness, but I really need to convince my audience to start using my product. Or I would like to influence my audience to start speaking about my product. I want to create an advocacy out of it. So marketers could have very distinct and clear objectives in whatever they want to communicate. Now, when the objective is clear, once we know what the North Star is, what is our goal post, then weaving a story around it, it's the art. And the second spice that we add to this, once we have the goal post, is really empathizing with our audience. Empathizing is immersing into their senses. Empathizing is actually seeing the world the way they are seeing it. So that's why when we conduct our design thinking workshops on storytelling, we really want to see how or hear the way our audiences are going to hear the story. So when there's a marketing project, we really have to really immerse in the senses of our audiences and really see what they want to hear. And that is why, while a marketer wants to craft a story around their product, whether it's for creating awareness, building conviction, creating advocacy, having that goalpost and having the whole act of discovery and empathy for the audience, it pays lots when it comes to designing a great story around marketing.
So I think, firstly, like you said, the North Star and putting yourself in your customer's shoes,
right.
The empathy for that person is something that I think we have to keep in mind. So now,
I mean, just to interrupt here, Purva, and this is not some new information I'm giving.
Yeah.
I mean, this is nothing that is rocket science. I mean, this everybody knows. But is there a structured way of doing it so that we don't miss out on any points? And that's the thing that comes out through structured workshops. So, oftentimes, when I used to write stories a few years back, I felt that, okay, let's start writing. I know my audience, I'll start writing it. It is when I realized that a structured activity like a workshop really gives much more insights than what a standalone activity of starting to write gives. Then I realized the importance of really having these workshops with our target audiences, getting those insights, really observing what they're doing with the product. So many things really play a big role in designing a story for them. So I just wanted to mention that although it's a known fact that empathizing is important, but there's a structured way of doing it.
No, I think you've answered one of the questions that I had for you, is that, does there have to be a structure for storytelling that marketers can use?
Yeah.
So I think you've told us about that it can be a very structured thing, because I mean, you also call it the science of storytelling, don't you? So the art and science of storytelling, I think.
Yes.
So can you give us some pointers though about the structure, how marketers can go about it?
Yeah, interestingly, Purva, I mean, the science behind story is also, since I'm a doctor, I study brain as well. an interesting fact that was found out in research was that stories influence the release of dopamine in your brain. And dopamine is a happy hormone. And happy hormone is something that is the environment in your mind when you're grasping information. So the science behind storytelling is that when you're really engrossed in a story, a well-made story, you're in the dopaminergic or dopamine environment. Your mind is happy in that environment. And in that environment, the grasping of information, the recall that you asked for is really impactful. So that's the science behind storytelling. And storytelling itself is a science. That's what I learned in my learnings from IDOU. That it's something that if done through the principles of storytelling, and a few points we already covered. One is really defining the intent of a story. That's the North Star. So when we talk about what is the story I want to tell, and what do I want to achieve? And in what do I want to achieve? What do I want my audiences to think? What do I want them to feel? And what do I want them to do? Oftentimes we assume that we know everything. But my experience is that when we really sit and jot it down on paper, it gives us way more insights than we would have done by assumption. So that's the first important part, is defining your story intent and your objective. And then the second part is about creating the whole empathy map of your audience. What do they really care about? What matters to them? What are they concerned about? What could be their needs around the topic that we want to tell? Writing them on paper or a whiteboard or post-it notes, anything that we do in our regular workshops, it really creates the whole big picture of what our audiences really care about. Then it becomes our job to see that all these points are some way or the other incorporated in our story. Then the next step is about deciding the tone of our communication. Sometimes the tone needs to be very academic when it is about communication to doctors. It needs to be compassionate when it is about communicating to patients. Sometimes it needs to be collaborative when it is kind of taking the whole world together towards a bigger purpose or a mission. So deciding that tone becomes very important. And then we do a hell lot of fun in Ethosh, where we do brainstormings on how we put it all to how we put all this together through different big ideas. And you'd be amazed that when I was doing the storytelling alone, I had a fixed set of direction. Okay, I'll tell a story in this way. But when I involved the lovely creative team at Ethosh, I get, in 20 minutes, I get 25 ideas of how to tell the story. And it was mind blowing that there were ideas which I had not even thought of. So going through this whole process of defining the intent, going through the empathy, doing the brainstorming really gives the structure to the storytelling and helps to create an impact.
Can you give us an example of this, final output of all of this? Maybe one or two projects that you worked on.
Yeah, lovely. So, so as I told you, stories can be anything. It could be even an experience at a conference booth for medical device or a lab device organization. So once there was this very huge corporation in medical and lab sciences came to us that they really wanted to create something which generated more footfall at their booths in the conferences. This is this has been done through different activities, but it's really important to see that this is in the scientific domain. We cannot just wildly go with something which is not related to the product that they want to really talk about. We found that it's really important that this communication needs to have low cognitive load. We should not give too much of what we call as gyan in Hindi or in Indish, that we don't give a lot of information, but we really engage. So what we did is that we did all this activity of brainstorming, and we came up with an awesome idea of playing Beat Saber on that whole big screen in virtual reality. And what we realized is that when people were really watching others do that, they were wanting to do that, and people were coming to the booths. And this was just not another game. There was some covert messaging going through that, which was about the colors of reagents that was this lab device industry or lab device company was trying to say. So it was an awesome experience to see that happen.
So now I think I have two questions. I'll proceed with the first one.
Yeah.
Now the first one, like we're talking about the healthcare and life sciences industries. It is, we can say, a complex industry. There's a lot of complications involved. There's a lot of new discoveries. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of technicalities that maybe the companies want to convey to their customers, right?
Yeah.
So, and many times companies, say in pharma or like, said lab tech, med tech even. So their USPs can be very technical. And their audiences can be varied from, I don't know, healthcare professionals, nurses, doctors, physicians to patients, the end users. So researchers. So there's a lot of variety in their end user, the customers that they serve. So how does storytelling work for each of them? Because like you said, in the last example, you didn't make it very gyan oriented. You made it simple and easy to understand, but also it made an impact. So does that work for people who work in the technical parts of it also?
Yeah, you're right, Purva. I think the medical and healthcare industry is, I would say, a sensitive industry in terms of domain, because in this domain, the people are not trying to get to something, some kind of luxury or some kind of incentive. They're trying to get away from illness. Secondly, it is highly regulated. So we need to be very careful about the way the information goes out. We cannot overpromise. The way we can sell toothpaste to show that your teeth could be diamonds, but we cannot tell that in the healthcare industry. Though this is different, the core, the soul of storytelling is applicable for the healthcare industry as well. Because when it comes to the healthcare industry, it is okay. Let me get away from healthcare industry. Let me just talk about an iPhone 15 Pro Max. Okay, Apple wants to sell this phone to you. It can really tell you all the features that it has. And it can really tell you the camera quality. It can tell you the functionalities that are there in the phone, which are more than the 14. This is one way of telling you about it. The other way is really knowing Purva as my audience, my target customer. I really know that she really loves making movies, short films for that matter. What if I tell Purva, no, let me help you make the best short film of your life, just like a professional camera. And I tell you, this is the iPhone for you. Would you buy it?
Yeah.
Because it connects, it's relatable for you, right?
Yeah.
The storytelling is about this, making this particular feature connect with your inner need. So when it comes to medical devices, when it comes to therapies, whether it's convincing doctors or trying to make patients aware, it's really not about telling the intricacies of science behind it. That is one part of it that is important. But equally important is to create the hope within this domain of patients that there is a normal life possible even with the disease, and helping doctors convince their patients about this. A very interesting experience that we created for patients who undergo colostomy. Colostomy is an opening in the intestine, or you have to cut the intestine and you really have to bring it to the abdomen, and you have to attach a pouch to that so that the waste goes out. It's not a very comfortable experience for somebody. And there are people who are very young, dynamic like you, God forbid, but they need to have such surgeries. At such times, it becomes very important to really assure them that a normal life is possible. So we created this whole virtual reality futuristic experience for this patient to show them how their life could be even if they have a colostomy with a pouch. And we try to give them this experience before they make a decision to go for that surgery. we try to engage all their senses, visual, auditory, emotional, so that they feel assured that getting the surgery done is not really going to be taking them away from the normal life that they're enjoying today. So in healthcare life sciences, I would say the core is about creating this hope that a good, happy, normal life is still possible, and helping doctors know that so that they can communicate to the patients and patients themselves to know that.
I think that's wonderful. The example that you gave about, the virtual reality program that you created for the patient. I think that would have definitely allowed him to be to experience what it would feel like. That would give him a chance to know what it would exactly feel like to live normally.
Yeah.
And before, when you talked about the booth experiences, I think that's also an amazing way for researchers to be involved and experience it, interact with the technology that the company is putting forth. So I want to talk more about this. I want to know more about technology in healthcare and life sciences, and especially interactive and immersive technologies.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's a lot of use for it in this industries. There's a lot of complex information that can be made very simple.
Yeah.
But first, I want to know who are the people that we target. So now we know one is the patients, like the colonoscopy person who used it, and another can be researchers. Are there any more avenues where technology can make stuff easier and better?
No, the beauty of technology is the way it can help to widen the reach. That is the core influence or impact of technology, is that today in my usual communications, a physical communication, I'm able to reach, say, a few thousand doctors. But technology really enables to tell my story to a wider audience in a very short amount of time. So when you talk about the core impact of technology, is one is the reach. Second is the standardized communication that goes. It's not dependent upon whether I, as a good sales rep, I'm able to influence. Yes, I'm able to do that. Maybe my colleague is not that good, and maybe I have a colleague who is much better than me. So there's a spectrum of my capability, but technology has standardized the way the communication has done. So you rightly identified, there could be patients, there could be doctors, there could be scientists, there could be nurses. I would say everybody who's involved in the ecosystem around a particular product or therapy or a medical device or lab device product is equally an important stakeholder when it comes to creating an impact or influence on this particular stakeholder. The second important part about technology is that the way it gives us good information on the return on your investment, because you're creating a story, you're investing in it. Stories are not something which really are done casually. It's a structured activity. It comes at cost. There are a lot of brains involved in this. A lot of activities of creating the story for you is involved. So there's an investment going in that. And it becomes very important for the industry to know, okay, how much have I really got in return. Interestingly, we created a very interesting game for a pharma, and they wanted to reach out to nurses and doctors. They didn't want to speak about any product or any therapy molecule. They just wanted to create an impression about their brand associated with a bigger purpose of infection control, antimicrobial resistance, and so on. So what we did is that we created a game which was a war of bacteria against humanity.
Oh, wow.
You know the principles of the right practices of antimicrobial resistance, prevention, infection control. You win over the bacteria. If you don't know, you lose. That was the game all about. And this is the influence that we try to create through a story, through an interactive experience. And since it was a game, there was interaction. People were working towards a goal of winning over the bacteria. So it was again a storytelling with gamification added to it as a spice. So all this really helped us create that impact on the people. And coming back to the question of how technology helped the pharma is that Today, they were able to create workshops, say for 25 nurses at a time. But now, with a single application, they were able to reach about 15,000 nurses
Wow.
within the first month with same standardized information, getting to know how they were engaged with the game, whether the message that they wanted to really tell, is it really going to them? So there was a way in which our backend could tell them, okay, this is what's happening. And yes, there are few things we had to tweak in the story just by understanding that the audiences are getting lost here. So let's tweak the story a bit here so that they are able to engage with the story till the end. So technology helps us to be agile about our storytelling, improve, iterate, and make it much better because we get real-time, real-world insights about how people are grasping those stories.
Right. I think that's so amazing, right? Because you're not only creating impact on your customers, you're not only, making them engage more with your content and get the point across better in lesser cost, I think.
Yeah.
And also you're getting insights about it. You can make the necessary tweaks. You can keep it flexible. You can change it according to the needs. So I think it's something that's never ending, right? You can always keep making, and I think, digital, so making changes in, say, digital applications is, I think, much easier than changing whole programs that you set for maybe the same thing. If they wanted to create an awareness without the technological part of this, they would have maybe needed to hold conferences for this, isn't it?
Absolutely. You said it, Purva, because the beauty of digital is being able to really make those changes which are scalable. I mean, you know that you're reaching, and specifically with medical and these highly regulated industries, it becomes very important that at no place a wrong information really goes out. So when you realize that something is going wrong somewhere, technology helps us to correct it at one point, and suddenly it all starts reflecting at all the front ends where it's being used. So I think that's the beauty of technology, where you're able to take care that no wrong communication really goes to your customers.
I think now I want to ask a question for the marketers who are interested in healthcare and life sciences, especially because our podcast talks about it. So I want to ask a question for the marketers who are interested in using technology for marketing of the healthcare and life sciences that they promote, that their company does.
Yeah.
So how do they go about it?
Yes. I did mention that storytelling is a science.
Yes.
So at Ethosh, we strictly see that it goes through a structured design process. And that's why when somebody comes up with a need statement or a problem statement for that matter as to how do I achieve this, it starts with the whole process of a structured insight gathering workshop. So we normally call it as insights to innovation. So it really pays to spend some good time, structured time on a nice post-it board, whether digital or physical, to capture those insights and really come to a key insight, an actionable insight, which is going to be the food for your brainstorming. We go through the same activities which I mentioned about defining the pole star, what do we want to achieve, what is our audience empathy, and then exploring out of the box wild ideas. So when we conduct brainstorming at Ethosh, there are 7 rules that we follow. One is go wild. I won't narrate the whole 7 rules here. I don't want to take a brainstorming class, but to tell you the gist of it, it's about going wild with ideas. Think unconstrained first. That's very important. If you put walls around your mind at the first point of ideation, you lose it all. So we allow them to go wild. Secondly, we see that nobody makes a judgment on the other's idea. We see that it is focused. We see that everybody gets to speak on their own idea. We see that people build on others' idea, build on each other's ideas. So all this really creates an amazing impact. So we are creating a lovely experience for, again, an experience around a radiological device We had this lovely brainstorming, very young people at Ethosh, different age groups, different levels of experiences, different domains of experiences. One of them told, why not have a street play on the conference venue? Initially, I would have thought it's a crazy idea. No, why would somebody perform a street play? But my boss, who really loves the whole aspect of storytelling, said, why not? Why can't we have a street play there and have the audiences engaged? So what I want to say is that it's a science, and it can be done beautifully if it is done structurally, and there has to be somebody who's driving it.
Right.
And that's why I find pleasure in being this driver at Ethosh, trying to engage as many people who can give wild ideas and come out with something very different. And that's what marketers want to achieve, right? They want to stand out with their product. They want to see that their communication, their information is not just one of the others. And that is where we would love to see that, how we can explore that part of the world.
I think now the only question that I really have is that, technology, we've seen how we talked about how well it works for the healthcare and life sciences industry also. So how do marketers marry technology and storytelling to get the best for their brand?
Yeah.
Can you give us some key, points, some key insights that can guide us along the path of using technology for storytelling?
I think I can talk from experience that the whole evolution that happened at Ethosh, we have been always trying to explore how do we make our stories really impactful. And luckily we had technology at our hand to really see that how this is possible. So we found that 3 important spices that need to be added to a story for the medical device, pharma industry, so that they are able to really also measure the impact that they are creating through the story, is gamification, interaction, and immersion. Gamification really engages multiple senses, sets an activity towards a goal, and really it's just not a passive story, but it involves the player or the listener or the audience in the story. With interaction, which is again gamification could have interaction, but interaction without gamification also gives you the user insights as to what the user is really, or your audience is really interested in. And immersion, as I talked about, virtual reality, it could be applicable in some spaces where virtual reality really brings value. Of course, we as Team Ethosh need to really analyze and see whether really there have been times where people come out excited to us, okay, let's do virtual reality, but we tell them, hold on, well, maybe this is not the right medium of telling our story. So seeing the right proportions of interaction, immersion, and gamification incorporated in your stories is, I think, the recipe that we have found to create an impactful communication for medical device, marketeers, even research and development people, or even trainers for that matter.
Wow, I think that's quite a good, say, list or a summary of what all people can keep in their minds when they're trying to make the most of technology and storytelling together. So gamification, immersion, and interaction. So I think that's a great formula. Do you want to say anything more to our listeners? Do you want to tell them anything?
We have spoken with them enough. I hope they were engaged enough that there was some kind of story they found in this communication as well. All I would need to say right now is stories can move minds. Stories move minds. And there's a science behind that. Storytelling itself is a science. Just like you have a mentor in your life, a life coach who can give you a direction to your life story, when it comes to your marketing story, I think a good mentor really helps. Maybe all of us know about everything that we want to talk about the product, but how to talk about it, I think it can help on having some mentorship. That's all.
I think Thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation. There's been a lot that we have talked about. There's been a whole journey that you took us through about storytelling, technology, and everything that ties in with it. So, thank you so much. Thanks a lot for being on the show. Thanks a lot for giving us your time.
No, no, it's like me to thank. I mean, it was lovely speaking to you, Purva. You had lovely questions. Of course, this was impromptu. This was non-scripted, okay, for your audiences, for our audiences here. So, absolutely, very spontaneous discussion here. Loved it. So, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. So, this was our episode with Dr. Pushkar Khair. If you like the episode, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. If you have any suggestions for us, or if you want to tell us how you liked the episode, please tell us in the comments below. We are trying to build a community of people who are working in the healthcare and life sciences industries to make an impact. So please join us and please help us in growing this community. And until next time, stay inspired, stay curious, and keep embracing the digital world. Bye.